Hello everyone. I'm Vlad Kruchinsky. This is Dr. Daria Zelenova, representing Center for Southern Africa Studies, Institute for African Studies, Russian Academy of Sciences, and welcome to the second edition of a joint online seminar organized by our department and Center for Military Studies of the University of Stellenbosch. The topic of today's seminar is Mutating Mutualities, Anthropological Study of Rotating Credit and Savings Associations, Mutual Aid Groups in Contemporary South Africa. At this seminar, we will focus on several issues connected to the current functioning, change of form, and nature of traditionally dominant South African rotating credit and savings associations, Stockholms and Bureau societies. We'd like to introduce and discuss our first findings from two field research visits conducted in Johannesburg, Soweto and Alexandra townships in 2014 and 2015. We'll look into the ways contemporary classical Stockholms operate in South Africa and compare them to the practices surrounding the digital or digitalized Ponzi schemes. I guess we'll need to touch a bit the general framework of our research. So it dates back to 2011 when we were studying self-organization in South African townships. And gradually our attention was brought to the issue or phenomenon of Stockholms and Bureau societies. We got extremely interested in this particular mode of monetary and financial mutual aid originating from law, and were fascinated by the digital turn it is now experienced, namely South African version of MMM, Ponzi scheme, and more maybe established things like My Deposit 24/7 or Keep It, and so on. Firstly, why do we study mutual aid in a contemporary South African city? This phenomenon of mutual aid and various self-help financial and monetary groups was always, and especially during the first half of 20th century, important pillar of urban life for South African working class and urban poor. So the Stockholms and Bureau societies of that time served basically as a safety cushion, apart from being very important mechanisms of adapting people to new and foreign realities of urban life. Gradually, the form which this association had changed. And basically what we have now is the situation where Stockholms, in the first place, and Bureau societies to a lesser extent, take form not of a basically economic safety cushion providing for very basic necessities people need to cover as urbanites. But something different, like
what we are going to talk about it today. While speaking about contemporary practices of mutual aid, social mutuality and reciprocity, or informal social protection in townships, we focused, as Vlad said, on the transformations they undergo in the contexts of increasing financialization and growth of informality. I'm going to our first point. The most popular forms of traditional mutual aid schemes in contemporary Alexandria and Soweto, I don't remember, I missed if you told about our research areas where we conducted our research. We conducted research in Alexandria Township and in Soweto. So we will be speaking about these locations. So the most popular forms of these traditional mutual aid schemes in contemporary Alexandria and Soweto are stockwills, social clubs, and burial societies. All of them are based on the principles of reciprocity and voluntarism, and are established more often in order to provide economic self-empowerment and informal social protection. The formation of such schemes nowadays is not motivated by the survival or necessity. I'm sorry, not by the survival or necessity, but rather by the idea of accumulation of wealth and the strive towards economic opportunity. Contrary to the first half of the 20th century, when such associations genuinely served as Vlad said, as an economic safety cushion for the urban working class and the poor. While speaking about purely economic reason behind the establishment of Stockwell, even nowadays, we need not to forget about a very important social factor, because even Stockwells, popularly known as rotating and credit and saving associations.
Academically known, rather.
Stockwell, is a South African name. Being in its essence monetary schemes, they inevitably produce sociality, and that is that's an important point that we want to make. Stockwells produce not only a rational and self-interested individual, but a collective where new and old forms of solidarity emerge, and that was what we were able to find out during our field research. Urban poor, as we could see, are not prone to participating in classic Stockwells, maybe except some burial societies, because poor obviously don't have, poor people don't have any extra cash. And in our research focused on the investigation of monetary practices and mutual aid among the urban poor, we were interested in how urban poor survive and what forms of mutual aid do they practice. And we found out, as I told, that they are not taking part in any Stockwells because they cannot afford it. After conducting a series of interviews with different people from urban households who don't take part in Stockwells and other schemes, we found out that many of urban poor in Soweto are part of Ponzi finance schemes, such as My Deposit 247 and Triple M or MMM. Some of our respondents were part of the social movement networks and grassroots political initiatives such as Operation Kajenica movement in Soweto and some other groups. And these networks, grounded on the principles of non-hierarchy, often produce mutual aid and provide some informal social protection for urban poor. But more often we met respondents that took part in this semi-legal financial schemes. They could take part in these schemes on the one hand. On the other hand, they could join some grassroots political initiative and could benefit from there. So it was sometimes these practices overlapped. Now we need to go further and maybe to speak a little bit more about the financial scheme, which is called My Deposit 247, which was introduced in South Africa quite recently under this name. First, we heard about this scheme while we conducted our research in Soweto, and interesting that we visited a community meeting where My Deposit 247 where this scheme was introduced. And it was interesting to hear and to see that this scheme was introduced by its leaders as a kind of community stockwell. So they used the brand of the stockwell in order to promote new forms of communality among poor urban residents. But the scheme is working, it's operating as many other schemes, financial schemes of such type. It's a pyramid scheme, so you need to put a small amount of money on a bank account, and then now the money is rotating, circulating among members.
It is actually organized in quite sophisticated manner. Unlike the Triple M in Russia of the 90s, the My Deposit initiative, and actually an interesting question would be whether the people directly associated with this network were present at this meeting you mentioned, or it was the discussion of the community, people from the community, how to use it.
No, it was recruitment.
It was
recruitment. The meeting, the meeting which I visited was the kind of recruitment.
So the basic outline of the functioning of this scheme, and why we call it digitalized. Mm-hmm. In order to participate, a person needs to create an account online, which is linked to a bank account. So bank account is always needed. Then, as person feels it with money, as person deposits a certain sum, the magic starts to happen, basically. But this is machine magic, because the bits of software programming connect all the accounts which are in the system. And all the members who are new to come, their contributions are being transferred to already participating members, which explains the very high percentage of user satisfaction, as they would call it. So as far as the scheme grows, it keeps paying back the people, and this is the reason for very uplifted spirits surrounding it, and very positive feedback we have gathered from people from all over Greater Johannesburg metropolitan area, actually.
Thank you. So the first input of 500 rand will make you 10,000 in 12 or 16 months. So you can imagine how it is growing. So unlike classical stockwells, participating in My Deposit doesn't need your social input. You don't need to go to any meetings. You can use only your mobile phone, and through SMS you can check your balance, and it doesn't need your physical presence. Yes, presence. So, and here we find a very important distinction between
the modern digitalized Ponzi schemes and traditional stockwells. So the classical stockwells, as we call them, are now becoming rather a feature of middle classes, the people who can afford regular payments. Mm-hmm. The people who find it important to be seen in a particular setting. And some researchers, and Liga has a very interesting piece on it, have pointed out the fact of the particular development which is now taking place across various such associations in South Africa. Mainly the self-financialization, as they call it, and the strive towards being more and more organized. So the stockholders, which you can find basically in every urban district in South Africa, are currently experiencing this strive to become more formalized. The associations which didn't carry constitutions or written sets of rules are now figuring it out and developing such constitutions. They start keeping minutes, and in our field research we have actually encountered this is to be a common point for contemporary Stockholm. It is highly formalized, organized. Entity with very strict rules regarding payments, first of all, of course, but also regulating at which particular time people need to show up for meetings, and penalties for being late, for penalties for failing to make their contribution in time, and so forth. Interestingly enough, this is being paired by a rising interest of the financial system, the banking community of South Africa now apparently sees in stockholders. So Kliege points out that several years ago, it was 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, the net worth, the net volume of money circulating in stockholders was estimated to be 40 billion rand, which is almost $5 billion of cash which flows outside the banking system. So the interest of the banks can be understood and is perfectly rational. The formalization of activities of contemporary classical stockholders is definitely the defining part of this whole Stockholm movement, if we can use such a term. New features, new banking services such as simplified accounting systems are being introduced, so that one association uses one account which serves 10, 20, 40, you name it, number of people who are part of this particular Stockholm or burial society, which makes it easier for banks to service it, because the costs of servicing are lower in such case, and second of all, it provides the unbanked, as the researchers call them, of South Africa an access to the banking services. So this is a point which needs to be taken into consideration when when talking about this new digital Ponzi schemes. The Stockholm in today's South Africa is for the established, for middle class people, basically, whilst the people who need, who really depend on the participation in such mutual aid groups for their day-to-day survival, opt for the different money-making schemes, namely
my
deposit 24/7, Triple M, Kipi, and so on and so
there
forth.
are various of these schemes introduced in townships, and as they pop up actually, every day you can Google and find a new one. But maybe we need to speak more about Maureen's case. It's a case study of a woman living in Soweto in Dube. She's 64 years old, and she is a single mother and is supporting alone her household. She's living together with her 2 children and 6, if I'm not mistaken, 6 grandchildren. And I think that her case is very significant because it's a typical South African case of a single mother, poor single mother supporting her big family, big household. She's speaking constantly about lack of money. She's a pensioner, she's retired, and her monthly income is 1,400 rand, as she says, and plus some odd jobs that she's doing, and her income that she gets from participating in these financial schemes. Having observed Maureen for 2 years, we haven't noticed that she became more established or rich, but she was constantly speaking about getting richer, about her virtual enrichment, if we can call it that way. She spoke about some growing wealth, about a car that she bought recently, on the money she got from the participating in the schemes. So it was the feeling was that she naturally believed in this enrichment and that she was standing on the threshold of something much better than she's experiencing right now. She started participating in the scheme My Deposit 247 in 2014 on the recommendation of her friend. She registered in the scheme, paid for this registration only 30 rands, and then she put 300 rands on bank account, and even and already after several months she got her first gain amounting 1,000 and 5,000 rand. After half a year she has doubled her gain, and as she told us, her maximum gain was 5,000 rand. She's not participating in any classical stockwells because she's chronically out of money. And in her view, this stockwell is something for well-established people, and she's she's taking part in one burial society together with it's a women collective of women taking part in this burial society. Another scheme that she's being part of is a Triple L scheme. It was also recently introduced in South Africa. The leader of MMM is Sergei Mavrodi, a very famous Russian fraud who was public figure who was sentenced in Russia after he cheated millions of people, basically, introducing in the post-Soviet Russia this new MMM scheme. And it was basically a popular pyramid scheme, very much...
Which enjoyed immense success. It was really huge in the early 90s in Russia. It was accompanied by a very interesting and saturated advertising campaign, and that was in a time when commercial advertising on television especially was very new to the Russian population. So and the whole disorientation after the collapse of the Soviet Union helped greatly this scheme, which have developed sort of new way of speaking and addressing the disoriented and disorganized masses.
Which is very similar to what is happening now in South Africa, but in more sophisticated manner, I would say. Because the Triple M, as they introduce themselves, they do it with some ideological background. What we could see from their what was posted on their website was that join Triple M and fight against financial apocalypse. We must destroy this unfair system. So it was a kind of ideology of poor people fighting the unfair system. And when Maureen told me about MMM, she was very happy and eager to speak about that, and she couldn't understand why the government, South African government, want to stop these people. She told me, if they, I'm quoting, if they can give us 10 years' time, Soweto will be changed.
So, to sum up, our research has shown that today in South Africa, characterized by the situation of systemic inequality, unemployment, lack of access to financial services for the majority of its population.
The South Africa's urban poor with an income of less than 3,000 rand a month are willingly taking part in the money-risking initiatives such as pyramid schemes and different types of Ponzi finance schemes. This is similar to what has happened in the former USSR and namely in post-Soviet Russia, with the massive participation of people in the money-risking Triple M schemes.
And we sincerely believe this is a path to be investigated further. The connections and the similarities of the success of the Ponzi finance schemes against this general economic situation majority of the population find themselves in.
And even economic situation of the post-Soviet Russia and nowadays South Africa is a bit different. Anyway, I think it would be important to make this comparative research of investigating of why people took part in this risking initiatives and what was their force and strive behind the idea behind participating in such schemes. Contrary to classic Stockwell's, digitalized Ponzi schemes do not provide you new forms of sociality.
Yes, quite contrary. Whilst the Stockwell produces the community, so the savings effort is not that of an individual, but you cannot basically Stockwell is all about the following. You can't save on your own, so you use the help of your immediate, usually as it happens with the Stockwell, your immediate neighborhood, your immediate neighbors, friends, and so forth. And you use this group in order to save, basically, simultaneously producing very actually numerous cultural forms, because this is another completely different topic, the cultural dimension of Stockwell. Whilst in these Ponzi schemes, especially digitalized ones, produce individual who follows very rational kind of agenda.
Self-interested agenda. Yes, and absolutely obvious that monetary element dominates over social thing in digitalized Ponzi scheme. A singular person is being sort of pushed out of the community, as we could see, into a virtual community. And this is a new thing also to investigate and to find out how this virtual community of monetary schemes participants is operating.
Yes, and apparently this has very little to do with the Stockholm per se, but still the Skimpy initiative and My Deposit 247 use the very term Stockholm to brand their services.
And the language.
And
Not
yes.
only the term, the language itself.
And the language, while essentially being something completely different. So here is the point where the mutation takes place. Actually, we have pointed out several strides of this mutation. First of all, the change of role of Stockholm itself. Then the appearance of this new digital schemes borrowing from the language of Stockholm, but being something different. And we hope it will help the further discussion at our actual seminar be a bit more interesting.
Yeah, and from economic point of view, and I hope that we will discuss on that topic on Wednesday, these money risking initiatives, practically they conserve poverty, or how we can say reproduce poverty. They don't make people they can make people happier, but they don't help people to get out of poverty, and that's how the system of pyramid schemes works. And in the global economic context, it will be interesting to see how it further develops in South Africa. Yeah,
precisely. Thank you very much. Anyway, we hope that was a coherent, more or less, topic. We are sure we will get better at it as we practice more.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.